friends, I'm Krista. Thanks for stopping by Books and Jams. Today, I'm finally going to wrap up the rest of my month of December. December was such a fantastic reading month for me. I read 13 books in total and had 2 others that I started but DNF'd. And in part, that has to do with because I spent a week at home at my mom's, sitting in front of the wood stove or sitting in the hospital with my brother Jordan. And that means there was just a lot of reading time for me. Not a lot of friends to go visit. There was Christmas in there, but it was a very quiet Christmas for my family this year, and that's okay. Quiet Christmases can be nice. But anyways, on to the books. I did film before I left for New York all of the books that I read in the first half of the month, so I will insert that clip here so you can see what I started the month with. We're past halfway through the month of December, and I haven't yet sat down to talk about the books that I've read so far, so that's what I'm gonna do here. I started out December right on the 1st or the 2nd, finishing up Wondersmith by Jessica Townsend. This is the second. It follows Nevermore, and I absolutely love this series. It's been a long time since I've been reading a series when it's coming out. I'm usually really far behind, but I am waiting already anxiously for the 3rd book to come out next fall or winter. Golly. These books follow Morgan Crow, who is a young girl, and in the first book she is told by her family and everyone around her that she is cursed and is set to die on her 11th birthday. But on the eve of her 11th birthday, she is whisked away to Nevermore by this crazy red-haired character named Jupiter North. And then we follow her adventures from there. I just love the creativity Jessica Townsend has. The characters, the different kinds of creatures in this magical world of Nevermore, the system of transportation and the streets and the map. This one includes a magical school element, and it's just so much fun. It's just so much fun. There's a wood where the trees are whinging. It's called the Whinging Wood, and the trees whine and moan, and if you listen to them, they won't stop moaning about their horrible lives. There's so many different things about this book that just made me smile all the way through while reading it. I flew through it. It's not a tiny book. I flew through it so quickly, and I was just so engaged, and I think I'm gonna have to reread them before I read the 3rd one, because I didn't reread Nevermore before reading this one, but they're just a lot of fun. If you are sad that you can't go back and read Harry Potter again for the first time, I think you should pick up Nevermore and Wondersmith, because I feel like you'll get those same kinds of vibes from this one. So definitely read these books. The second book that I finished in December was Louise Penny's A Fatal Grace. This is the 2nd book in her Armand Gamache mystery series. This was very cozy. It happens in the town of Three Pines. It's set in the wintertime. It was very cold and very blustery, and I read this during the weekend that we got a lot of snow here in Richmond, which is not a very common occurrence, but it was the perfect time of year to read this book. I love that her characters feel so real. I feel like they could really exist in this idyllic little town. Even though it's this remote, cutesy little town in Canada, these characters are also very real and dealing with very real things. So we have miscommunication in marriages, we have love and jealousy and motivations that feel very realistic. Even Armand Gamache, who is this awesome detective, he's also a flawed character, but I think that's what makes them all so endearing. And so I really enjoyed reading this book, and I look forward to reading the next one. And even though I have so many of her books, I don't have the 3rd book, The Cruelest Month. So I will definitely be looking for that one next time I get to the library. I then DNF'd a book. The 3rd read for December was one that I just decided to set down, and that is Go Set a Watchman by Harper Lee. And I was reading this with Steffi, and I will link her channel down below. We both decided that this is just not the time or the type of book that we like. I honestly was bored for the first huge chunk of it. Probably, I mean, I got pretty far. You can see I don't know if you can see, but I only had a tiny bit left. I read all of this part. I found it very boring. I did not like Harper Lee's writing style in this one, and it's been so long since I've read To Kill a Mockingbird. I don't know if it's the same or different style of writing, but I just didn't get on with this one at all. And I just wanted to read heartwarming, either romance or, I don't know, I just wanted to read something that was more fitting for the season for me, cozy. I wanted to read something cozy and heartwarming, and this is definitely not it. But in this one, we follow Scout, who is Jean Louise, but it's years later, after the events of To Kill a Mockingbird. She returns back to her hometown and kind of discovers that people aren't exactly what she thought when she was a kid. It puts a twist on things where the town is very racist. And maybe that was a part of To Kill a Mockingbird, but even Atticus, who was kind of put on a little pedestal in To Kill a Mockingbird, but he's just such a wonderful character. In this one, he's not such a wonderful character. I wasn't there for it. And I just don't think that it's one that I'm gonna read. It's going in my unhaul pile. So, not into it. I know some people really liked it, but it just wasn't for me. But then I did pick up a wintry book, a Christmassy book, and I picked up Winter Street by Ellen Hilderbrand. So many of you in my TBR video said that this was one that I was gonna love, and you were right. I was a little nervous because it starts out with a husband walking in on his wife kissing Santa Claus, the person who played Santa Claus in their inn that they owned together. So I was like, oh, is this book going to be about adultery all the way through? And it's really not. It's about this father and his children, his ex-wife, his current wife, and all of the drama that surrounds all of them. But it takes place on Nantucket Island in this inn called Winter Street. It was just very Christmassy and heartwarming. I really loved this family. And each of the kids are going through some pretty serious events in their lives. So I know this is the first in a series, and I did pick up books 2 and 3 from the library, so I'm bringing those to New York with me for the holiday. This was just such a better fit for my mood this month than Go Set a Watchman was, but I really enjoyed this one. And the 5th book that I have been reading this month is How Did I Came to Sparkle Again by Kaya McLaren. And I thought this was going to be a Christmassy read, and it really wasn't so much a Christmassy read. It's about a town called Sparkle in Colorado, but it happens in the winter and skiing is a big part of it. But this just follows 3 main characters, really, 2 friends, Jill and Lisa. Jill comes back to Colorado after a devastating event with her and her husband. She just needs to leave Texas where they live together and goes back to her hometown. Lisa is her friend who lives there, and Lisa kind of is living this party type lifestyle, just a lot of men in and out of her life, and she's kind of realizing her worth a little bit more and holding out, taking a break from kind of the revolving door in her bedroom, and just recognizing that she deserves better. And then we also have this little girl named Cassie, whose mother has recently passed away, and this is her first winter holiday season without her mom being there, and how everyone kind of expects her to just be okay, or I don't know, treats her differently because of her grief and her loss, and she's just wanting to kind of be a normal little girl, but also really, really, really missing her mom. So these 3 women kind of, their lives intersect, and it was very heartwarming. I did tear up a little bit. I don't think I had a full-on cry, but it was a beautiful little story, very heartwarming and cozy for the season. Not as light and fluffy maybe as I thought when I first saw it, but I really did enjoy this one as well. So that's How I Came to Sparkle Again. So that is what I've read for the first half of the month. Well, yeah, I'm in the middle of quite a few books, and I'm taking a whole box of books home to my mom's with me because wood stove time is coming my way, and I can't wait to just sit in front of the wood stove and relax for the Christmas season. I'll be checking in a second to let you know what else I read this month. Now I have 8 and 9-ish books more to talk to you about, so let's just jump right into the rest of my month. I don't remember the order in which I read these, so I'm just going to kind of do them in a random order of how they're piled up here. A lot of these are library books and need to be returned soon. They're overdue. Some have been renewed, but some I can't renew, so anyways, here we go. I did finish the Winter Street series by Ellen Hildenbrand. I read, as you saw, Winter Street at the beginning of the month, and then I finished out the month with Winter Stroll, Winter Storms, and the 4th one, Winter Solstice, which my mom borrowed from her library for me while I was at home. I really enjoyed this series. I loved following along the Quinn family and all of their escapades and problems and how they worked together as a family. I would say that this Winter Storms, the 3rd one, was probably my least favorite, but in the 4th book, there's a whole new storyline introduced that I read the author's note. I guess she was gonna wrap this series up as a trilogy, and was convinced to add that 4th book. And so along with wrapping up this series, she also kind of wrapped up another book that she had written, which I haven't yet read. So in these books, we follow each of the different family members' perspectives throughout the books. And so there was a whole perspective in that 4th book, Winter Solstice, that I kind of skimmed or skipped. because I just wanted to know about my Quins. But I really enjoyed these. I found them to be very Christmassy and family oriented. Even though they had a lot of problems and a lot of things going on, they just were sweet, quick, easy, fun, heartwarming reads, and I really enjoyed them. And I was sobbing at the end of the 4th book. Whew! It got me. It got me. I also kind of ended up buddy reading The Snow Child by A.O. and Ivy. I saw Robin from the Driftless Readers mention that she wanted to read this book, and I'm like, hey, that's in my pile of snow or winter books that I want to read this year, so let me read along with you. And so I did. I picked this up and read this along with Robin. I absolutely loved this book. So in this story, we follow an older couple who has moved to Alaska because they're not super old. I wouldn't say older, actually. They're not elderly. We follow this couple who moves to Alaska. They have, they kind of want a fresh start. They have been unable to have children. They kind of want to escape the life that they've known and move to Alaska and live on the frontier and farm and live in the wilderness and make it for themselves. But there's a lot of grief and sadness. This is a very sad book. However, there are moments of such joy that really stand out to me because of the writing. A.O. and Ivy's writing is so beautiful, almost poetic, but not so filled with metaphors that you don't know what she's saying. It always was easy to read for me, but I just loved the writing style of this book. And I probably would have given it a 4-star for the content, but 5 stars because of the writing. I bumped it right up. Anyways, back to the story. So this couple, one of the moments of joy is during the first snowstorm one winter, they start having a snowball fight with each other, which is so beautiful because there's not a lot of communication. There's a lot of grief hanging over both of their heads and in their hearts. And so they have this moment of just being childlike and throwing snow at each other. And it's just so sweet and tender. And I just loved it. And that day they build this snow child, who the next day this snow child disappears and they find this girl in the forest. So that is the beginning of this story. There's friends that they meet. There is struggles that they get through. They develop a bond with this girl, trying to figure out who she is, and we follow them through decades, or at least a decade. I really, really enjoyed this one. I'm so glad that I read it. It isn't a happy read, but that's okay. It was very wintry, so it fit. I did read that in New York where there was snow. I also finished Mr. Dickens and His Carol by Samantha Silva. What a lovely Christmassy read this one was as well. So this kind of is a historical fiction about Charles Dickens and how he wrote the Christmas Carol. So it's kind of a down on his luck. He's getting bogged down by the materialism that he sees all around him and in his family and children, and kind of becomes a little bit of a Scrooge himself. There's a magical element to this that I just loved. It was a perfect December read, and I'm really glad that I read it. I also picked up from the library Sea Prayer by Khaled Hosseini, and I literally read this in maybe 5 minutes, but this book is beautiful. It's not wintry or Christmassy at all. It actually was inspired by a picture of a little boy during the Syrian refugee crisis, which is still a very realistic thing. But this is basically a father talking to his son and saying a prayer for the things that as they flee their country that he's gonna miss, and that he wishes he could show him and remember. And the art is just stunning, and it's very moving. It was very moving, and I absolutely loved this little prayer, this little book. It was, yeah, just very moving, I think is the best word that I can say about that. I did read One Day in December by Josie Silver in one day in December, and I was determined to finish it. I did finish it before midnight. I was so excited. Such a dork. I enjoyed this because it's a contemporary romance, and that's kind of the mood that I was in for the month of December. There was a lot that I really liked about this. We follow Lori and Jack. Lori is on the bus one day, and she looks out the window and sees Jack and feels an instant, really strong connection, and spends the next year or more looking for him, looking for this man that she saw from the bus window one day. It's the story of their relationship, their friendship. It spans decades. Things, twists and turns come along the way that are unexpected, and you think it's going to be a love at first sight kind of instant love situation, and it's really not. It really spans decades. So there is a bit of a slow burn for it, which I did appreciate. However, I just don't like reading curse words in books. I just find it so unnecessary. And I know so many people speak that way, but I just don't enjoy it. So some of you ask me all the time about language. This is one that has a bit of language. It's not much, and usually once I get into the story, I forget it. I usually notice it at the beginning, and then as I get into the story and involved with the characters, it doesn't bother me as much. But I just did want to mention that it's in there. Yeah, I enjoyed this. It was not a 5-star read. I think I gave it 3, 4, something like that. It was fun. It was light. I enjoyed it. There's that. I had 2 audiobooks. I listened to one most of the way up to New York and another one most of the way back from New York. And the first of those is The Glass Ocean by Beatrice Williams. I've seen her around quite a bit, and I was really excited to read a book by her. And this book, The Glass Ocean, revolves around the Lusitania, which is a ship that was sunk by the Germans, I believe, in World War I. And that's what brought America into the war. That's one of the kind of final straws that brought America into the war. So Lusitania was sailing from America to England and was sunk by a torpedo that the Germans shot at it. However, this book follows a couple of different characters, including a con artist and then a high society woman. There's a piece of music that's kind of like the last symphony of some composer that's worth a lot of money, but does it contain some code as well? The con artist is trying to discover that and steal it and forge it. And so there's a lot of intrigue and a little romance and a lot of historical fiction as well. I just truly enjoyed listening to this audiobook. And the other audiobook that I listened to is Marilla of Green Gables by Sarah McCoy. I love Marilla in the Anne of Green Gables series, but she comes across, especially near the beginning, as a pretty hard shell, pretty tough cookie. And this is Marilla's backstory. You kind of find out how she became the way she is in Anne of Green Gables, according to Sarah McCoy. And I found that the writing was very nostalgic and fit well for me with the writing of Anne of Green Gables. It tells the story of Marilla and her heartbreak and her love and her special bond that she has with Matthew. It imagines what life was like with her parents growing up, and yeah, it just was a lovely, lovely read, and I think that if you're a fan of Green Gables, you would definitely enjoy Marilla of Green Gables as well. So there's that. I did have one more DNF in the month, and I'm sad that I'm ending on this one. I should have picked this one up sooner, but my Goodreads read-along pick for December was The Power by Naomi Alderman, and I was really not in the mood for this book. I started it near the beginning of the month. I tried to pick it up once I came back from New York, and it just wasn't what I was looking for. In this book, women, and I only made it, I made it about a quarter of the way, maybe. Women begin to have this power where they have electric power. They can, by touch, send electric energy to other people and harm them. And there was like a religious aspect to this that it kind of became almost a cult. These girls were pretty brutal, some of them, and just their mindset. And it was a lot darker than what I was wanting to read in December. And ultimately, I don't think that it's a book I'm going to want to pick up and finish, even though maybe down the road I might enjoy it a little better than I did in December. I just don't think that with all the books on my shelves, this is one that I'm going to want to come back to. So I am going to be unhauling this one. So that is it. 13 books and 2 DNFs in the month of December. Pretty good. It was a huge reading month for me. And a lot of that has to do with just extra time sitting at my mom's to read. I hope that you are having a great January so far. I would love to hear from you about any of these books, thoughts, comments down in the comments down below. You know I love chatting with you down there. And stay tuned because I have a lot more videos coming your way. So I'll be talking to you soon in another video. Bye. Hi, Krista. Thanks. Hi, Krista. I'm fogging up because I'm so sweaty. Hold on a moment. Can you see that I'm fogging up?